Hello, my dear friends. How are you all? I hope you all are doing good. So, inside this very interesting course, we'll see a very amazing concept, and that is how to use Next.js application with Redis database. So, inside this overall course, we'll see a CRUD-based application. It means I'll do the operation of create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation. So, all these operations we'll do by using an API call from Next.js application to Redis database, and along with also, we'll see the cool stuff of Redis and Redis CLI. So before going further to deep concept of this course, let's see a project demonstration so that we'll have some idea that what type of application we'll create inside this very interesting. Now this is the landing page of this application. So basically we'll create an employee management app by the help of this form or by the help of this CRUD application. We'll do create operation, read operation, update operation and delete operation. So as we can see that inside this landing page, here we have a form. By the help of that form, we'll create some employees data into Redis database. And here inside this right hand side, also we can see a tabular format. So whenever if we create any employee, automatically it will save first into Redis database and then after it will list inside this tabular format. So before passing in data, click on add employee and also we can see that validation is working. Let's create some data. So I'm using fake filler to take some values to fill some values. So this is our employee information. Click on choose file. It means to upload the profile image. Now select it. Click on add employee and now we can see employee added successfully. And also inside this table, we can see our first employee now created. Let's create one more employee. Click on this fake filler. Here we have the employee information. Now this time I'm not going to upload the profile image of this employee. Click on add employee and successfully there is no profile photo, but here employee has been created. Now let's do update operations. So click on this edit button and here I'll go upload a profile photo for this employee. This one, click on update employee and now as you can see that employee updated successfully. Now here, let's see the delete operation. So for example, I want to delete this employee. Click on delete button. If I click cancel, nothing will happen. But whenever, if I go to delete, yes, delete it. And now we can see employee deleted successfully. So, and one more thing, I will show you a very cool thing about Redis CLI Monitor. So this is our landing page again. And here, let's go back to project terminal. And inside this terminal, I will type Redis CLI Monitor. Hit enter. Now I am inside the monitor screen of Redis CLI. Let's go back to our landing page. So here I want to create our first employee. Click on fake filler. So this is employee information. Click on choose profile. Let's click on this photo uploaded. So I can see that there is nothing inside this monitor. But whenever if I click on add employee successfully, employee has been created. Now one more cool thing. If I go here and now I can see behind the scene inside this monitor screen, this query has been executed. So this is the query what basically running to create this employee from this form and also to list those data into this tabular format. If I go click on delete, just delete it, employee deleted. But if I go to this monitor, and now we can see that here we have the query to delete that employee from Redis database. So these are the concept what basically will cover inside this very interesting, amazing course. And one more thing, before going further, I assume that into your local system, Node.js and NPM is available, and also for database, Redis is available. And last, if you think that this course is really very helpful to you, please hit the like button to like this very amazing course. Subscribe to this channel for my motivation, for my hard work, and I hope that everything has been done. Now let's go into this interesting journey, into this interesting course. Now from this video topic, we'll start the development journey concept of this interesting course. So first thing first, I want a setup of Next.js into my local system. So to create a Next.js setup, I have two options. Either I can use npm or npx. So here, I will prefer npx to create a Next.js setup into my local system. Let's go back to project terminal and then after I will type a command called npx, then create next app @latest, and then after I will pass my project name. So let's call it as Next.js Redis -app. So after typing this command, hit enter. Now it will ask some question. Now here, would you like to use TypeScript? So I will go with the default value yes, yes. So in this video course, I'll use Bootstrap. So no here, then no, because I want app directory at project root, then app router, then turbo pack, then import alias. So I have basically passed all about the default parameter values. In a moment, it will install and create a Next.js startup into my local system. So just wait for a while. Now successfully, I can see that our Next.js startup now installed into our local system. So what basically next? Simply, I will open this project setup into my VS Code editor. So simply, let's type the project folder name. So cd, then after Next.js app, sorry Redis -app. Now then after, I will open this setup into my VS Code editor. Now successfully, I open my Next.js startup into my VS Code editor. Now let's run a command to start its development server to see its landing page. Let's go back to project terminal and then after into this project setup, I will type a command called npm run tab. Hit enter. Now I can see the development server has started at localhost 3000 port. So simply press Ctrl, click into this link, and in a moment it will open the landing page of Next.js application. And this is the landing page. Now then after, we have to install some packages, that packages we need to complete this interesting course. Let's go back to VS Code. Let's open a new tab. So here, according to demo, as you know that we have some layout. So to create that layout, we need some library CSS. So here, inside this course, I'll use the concept of Bootstrap CSS. So the first package will be called Bootstrap. Then after, also we have seen that we have a form. So inside that form, I will implement or add form validation. So for form validation, we want React hook form. And then after, also we need two more packages called Yup, the form schema validator. Then after, also we need called hook form forward slash resolvers. Now then after, also we know that to display our browser notifications for ongoing activities, we have to use a package called React Hot Root. And then after, on click of delete button, I want to display a confirmation message. I want to open a pop-up to take the user confirmation. So for that, I will use a package called Sweet Alert 2. Now, after this, as we know that inside this very interesting course, we are going to perform the CRUD operations like create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation. So for all these operations, we'll use the concept and queries of Redis database. So to work with the Redis database, we have to use a package called IO Redis. In some cases, if suppose you don't know about the package name, so in that case, what basically you have to do, let's go back to browser. Now, if I open the Redis, the official website, you will see something called redis.io. Now, this is the official website of Redis database. So simply, if I copy this domain name, let's go here. So we can see that redis.io. So package name, if you want to remember, simply io and Redis. Now this IO will be in front of this Redis keyword. So simply this will be the package to interact with our Redis database. Then after, as you know that we have to perform CRUD operation, so I will make use of the concept of HTTP request. So here for that I'll use Axios package. So inside this course, I will use these 8 packages to complete this very interesting course. Now, after getting the packages concept, let's go back to project terminal. And before that, if I go and type the command to install all these packages into a single go, so it will be npm install or npm I. Then after the package name will be called bootstrap. This was our first package. Space React hook form will be the second package. Then after, yep, will be the third package. Then at the rate hook form forward slash resolvers space then after React Hot Toast space, then after switch alert to space, then after IO Redis, then after Axios package. So after typing all these packages name along with this npm I, just copy this complete command. Let's go back to project terminal and first I will stop this development server and just type and hit enter. Now in a moment it will install all these packages into a project setup. And one more thing, so if I go and open package.json, so like I can see that now successfully all these packages installed and I can see inside this package.json all the packages now updated inside this dependencies object. Now, after this, if I talk about the project folders and files, so what basically we need to complete this very interesting course, let's open a new tab. So at project root, I'll create our first folder that is called lib leave folder, and inside this leave folder, I'll create a file called redis.ts. Now, by the help of this file, simply we'll return Redis database instance. Then after, I'll go and create some folders inside this app folder. So the folder will be called API. It means this API folder will be created inside app folder, so app forward slash API. And inside this API folder, I'll create two different folders. First will be called upload, and then after also will create a folder called employee. Because as we know that as per the demonstration, we have to create employee management app. So inside this upload folder, I'll then create a file called route.ts. Now by the help of this route.ts, basically we'll confirm the API endpoints, and by the help of API endpoint, we'll upload the profile image of employee into this project setup. Now then after, into this employee folder, I'll create a folder called ID, and also I'll create a file called route.ts. Now, by the help of this route.ts, basically we'll configure some API endpoints, and by the help of that API endpoint, we'll save our employees' data into Redis database. And inside this ID folder, I'll create one more file with the same name called route.ts. And by the help of this route.ts of this ID folder, we'll configure the API endpoints for edit operation and delete operation. So this is the pattern of files and folders what basically we have to create inside this project setup. And two more things. First, like I'll use the default layout.tsx so that by using this layout.tsx, I will bind our bootstrap configuration file. Now then after, I will also use page.tsx to create our main layout of employee management app. Now, first thing first, let's create first all about these folders and files into this project setup. So I'll close first this page.tsx. Then after, let's go at project root, create a folder called lib, and inside this folder, I'll then create redis.ts. So just copy, go inside this lib folder, let's create a new file and that is called redis.ts. Then after, let's go inside app folder, and inside this app folder, we need API folder. So I'll create a folder called API, and inside this API folder, then we have to create called upload and employee. So inside this API, I need two folders called upload or uploads, and then after I need one more folder called employee. So I will name as employees. Now then after into this employees folder, also I need a folder called ID. Now let's go inside this employees folder, create a new folder, square bracket and ID. And inside these folders called employees, ID folder included uploads folder, we want a common file that is called route.ts. So here, now if I go to uploads folder, let's create route.ts. Now here we have created, let's go inside this employees folder, created, then I will go to this ID folder, create a new file called route.ts. Now the question is, why basically we have created route.ts file inside each of these folder? So let me tell you that according to naming convention of Next.js, if I want to create any APIs, so first thing first, we have to create the folder into this pattern. For example, if I want to create an API, something called API folder, then it's student, and if suppose we are passing the student ID into URL something called 12, And on the basis of that, if I want to call an API, so the folder naming convention or the folder pattern will be called app folder. And inside this app folder, we want an API folder, and then after student folder, and then after, as we can see that we are passing ID. So this ID is a dynamic value. So here, this ID is a folder, and inside this ID, it will be called route.ts. So this will be something kind of a folder and the file pattern, what basically we have to follow as per the naming convention of Next.js application. Let's go and remove all these things. So here, now we have two folders inside this API, and this API folder is inside app folder. Now let's open layout.tsx. Now inside this layout.tsx, so first I'll close this file, let's close this route.ts and redis.ts. Now inside this layout.tsx, first I'll remove all this default piece of code. Only metadata is okay, and also from this body tag, let's remove this class name. And as we know that we have successfully installed Bootstrap, so I'll go here, let's say import Bootstrap, then dist folder, then CSS folder /bootstrap.mean.css. Now successfully, now we have implemented or we have linked the Bootstrap CSS library with this application. Now we can easily use the Bootstrap classes. Now here I have to create some layout like the layout we had seen inside our demonstration of project, that is employee management app. Also inside this title, let's say that it will be employee management app. Save these changes. Now, if I go to browser, let's go our GitHub repository called github.com/owthub. Then click on repositories. And after that, let's click on a repository called Next.js Redis app. Let's click into it. And then after into this repository, I can see a folder called HTMLs. Just click into this folder. And inside this folder, we have two files called layout.html and page.html. So I'll first open this layout.html. And inside this layout.html, now we can see some piece of code. So what we can do, either we can copy all this code from here. Let's copy all this code I have copied. Let's go back to layout.tsx, and here inside HTML, just remove all this code and simply paste here. Now here we have some error, that is with the class keyword, and let me tell you that inside Next.js, class is a reserved keyword. So instead of using class, we have to use class name. So it will be something called class name. So what I will do, simply let's copy this class equals to double quotes, and I will replace with this class name. Replace all occurrences. So successfully, now we have replaced class with class name. And also inside this main tag, I'll use expression, and inside this expression, it will be children. Now if I save all these changes, let's go back to browser. If I go here and let's reload, and I think we have to start the development server. So let's go here. It will be npm run dev. Hit enter. Started, and then now as we can see that after updating layout.tsx, now here we have a header with a title called employee manager Next.js with Redis database. Now let's go here, and one more thing, also I can separate like this navigation and this footer by means of creating some components. What can we do? Simply let's go at project root, create a folder. I'll call it as, let's say, components, and inside this folder let's create our first component, and I will call it as navbar.tsx. Now then after, let's create one more file, and I will call it as footer.tsx. Now then after, let's go inside layout.tsx. Then I will cut all this code of this nav tag. Let's go inside this navbar.tsx, and here let's export default function, and I will call it as navbar. And inside this function, let's say return fragment, and inside this fragment, simply return this nav tag. Now once we save, now let's go inside layout.tsx. So first we have to import our navbar component. So import navbar and it will come from components and navbar.tsx. Now then after let's copy and if I save these changes for the time being, and now we can see there's no navigation tag. If I go and if I use the tag called navbar or the component, but basically we have configured, save these changes. And now we can see the header that is employee manager Next.js with Redis database. It's the same pattern. Let's go and create this footer tag. Then I'll go to this footer component and here let's export default function, let's say footer, and inside this function, let's say return fragment, and inside this fragment, this is our footer. Now if I save these changes, let's go here inside layout.tsx. Let's import first our footer component. So import footer from components, and then after I will copy, go here, and after this main tag, let's call our footer component. And one more thing, inside footer.tsx, as I can see that here we have the static value 2025. So instead, let's use the dynamic value. So curly pairs new date dot get full year. If I save these changes, now if I go here and now you can see that here we have the dynamic value and inside this footer component. So here we have the header and the footer, and in between here we have the child component that is page.tsx. For page.tsx, if I go back to this GitHub repository, here we have page.html. Let's copy all these code from this page.html of these HTML folders. I'll go here. Let's open page.tsx, and here I'll remove first all the existing code of this page.tsx. Let's export default. It will be function home, and inside this function let's say return, and inside this I will paste all those complete code. So we can see that here we have lots of error. So first I will go and replace this class keyword. So class double equals to, let's copy and replace with this class name. Now all done. If I scroll, here we have like style attribute. So instead of this double quotes and text align center, let's pass expression. And here, let's say text align, and I will pass the value called center. And also here the call is plan. So inside Next.js application or React.js application, if we have something a word which combines two specific word that is column and span, so here it will follow the camel case pattern. So here s will be in caps, so it will be call span, and inside this expression let's pass the 5 value. Now save these changes. So this is all about page.tsx. If I scroll to check any other errors, and I think everything has been fixed. Let's go to browser, and if I go here, and now you can see that here we have the header footer. This is our employee management form. By the help of that form we can create our employees data and save inside Redis database. And inside right hand side also we can see a tabular format which contains the data like profile image, name, email designation, and action buttons. And also we can see that here we have mass that is no rows found. So in this, like in this tabular format, we have to handle like this row and this message conditionally. If suppose if we have no data, so in that case this message will be visible, and if we have some data, so in that case these rows will be visible. Now after this, let's go back to editor, and then after I will go to this page.tsx, and let's close first this footer.tsx, then navbar.tsx, and also inside layout.tsx. Let's go import one more package that is called import toaster, and this toaster basically like we have imported to display the toaster notification. So this toaster will basically creates a div tag. So here after this body, let's call this toaster component. Now save these changes. Let's go here inside page.tsx, and then after at at the top of this file, first let's say interface, let's say employee, and inside this employee I need some values, sorry, I need some properties called id. It is a type of a string. Then after we'll have the employee name, which is type of a string value. Inside employee form, also we have the email field. It is also containing a string value. Then we have, if I go to check, so gender designation, so it will be gender string value. Then after designation, and it is also a string value. And additionally, inside this employee form, also we have a field called input type file to upload the profile image of that employee. So inside this interface employee, inside this employee object, let's add one more property, and that will be called profile image. And either it will be a string value, or it is a type of file, or it will be undefined. Now save these changes. Now here also, we have to go, let's import some packages for form validation. So import, I'll call use form, and this will come from React hook form. Additionally, two more packages called import all as yep from yep package. Now then after also we need, let's say import yep resolver from hook form resolvers forward slash yep. Now then after also we need like use effect or like use state. So for the timing it's okay. Let's go here inside this home component, and then after, so before here, before this component, let's create our form schema. So const form schema equals to use yep dot object dot shape method, and inside this shape method simply let's go inside it. So what the form input fields we have, so here we have the name, email, gender, designation, and profile image. So I want that from these fields, like we have only the required fields, let's say name, email, gender, and designation. So what we can do inside this schema, we have to put only the validations over the required fields. Let's say required fields, validation, and inside this we want for the name like employee name. So yup dot string, it is required. So here let's say name is required, or even we can call, let's say employee name is required. Then after also I want for the email, so yup dot string. So what the value we enter inside email field should have a valid email pattern. So email. Now inside this email, in case of invalid pattern, let's say that invalid email address. And also this field is required. So required, let's call email is required. Now after this email, let's put the validation for gender. So yup dot string. So if I go back to fields, so we can see that inside this gender, here we have the available options like male, female, and other. It means the user can only select only any of the specific values. So if I go here for the gender validation, I'll choose one of, and inside this available options we have called male, female, and other. And instead, if suppose user will pass something any value apart from these specified values, so in that case, let's say invalid gender. And also this field is required. So let's say gender is required. Now then after designation, so it will be designation yep dot string. And after that it is required. So let's say designation is required. Now, after creating this form schema, let's go here, and then after I will import some methods and properties from use form. So const, and I will make use of use form, and inside this use form, let's pass an object, and here resolver equals to resolver, and I will pass form schema. Now then after, let's go and import. So I will first import, let's say register, then after handle submit form state, and from form state I will read the errors. Also let's say set value, and also the reset function. After getting all these things from use form, let's copy this register. So first I will go for this first input field called name, and inside this name let's use curly pairs, tree dot, and here register, and the field name we have called name. In case of any error, what we get for this name field, let's go inside this text changer of this p tag. So we have to read from this errors dot name dot message. Now let's go for this email field. So in the same pattern, curly pairs, p dot register, and the field name we have called email. Let's go inside p tag in case of any error. So it will be errors dot email dot message. For gender, let's go here. So register the field name we have called gender, what basically we have taken, and in case of any error, just go inside p tag errors dot gender dot message. And finally, the designation is also required. So let's go here. So it will be register, and here we have the field name called designation. Just go in case of any error inside p tag with errors dot designation dot message. Now once we implement all these things, let's go back to browser. And I think here we have some error, and that is use form is not a function, and it's because inside Next.js application we have two types of component. So first we have called server component, and second client based component. So by default inside page.tsx this is a server side component. But remember, to use this all this concept, we want that this server component should be converted into a client component. So how to convert this server component into a client component? So simply we have to use a keyword called use client. So once we type in this use client at the top of this file, simply now this server component now converted into a client component. If I go here, now you can see that error has resolved. Now once we go click on and let's reload one more time. Here we have two more issues. If I go, so empty string was passed inside this src attribute, like inside this image tag. So what we can do for the time being, if I scroll inside this image tag, let's go and comment this element. Now let's save these changes. If I go, and now you can see that right now we don't have any error. Now without passing any value, if I click on this add employee, so currently the value is passing, and it is because let's go here inside this form tag. And inside this form tag, I will add an event called onSubmit. And inside this onSubmit, it will be handle submit, what basically we have imported as we can see from this use form. And inside this, we have to pass the functional event handler name. So let's call it as onFormSubmit. So this is our function name. Let's copy, go here. So form submit, it will be const on form submit, and here the data basically what we are submitting is it is a type of employee what basically here we have created. So just copy this employee interface, and I will go here. Let's say data. It is type of this employee, and for the time being, if I go console.log, let's say data. If I save these changes, let's go back to browser. Let's remove this query string parameters. Let's reload. And here we have some error, that is again inside this image tag, and I think inside tabular format we have one more image tag. So what I will do, just go and comment this image tag. Now if I save these changes, go back to browser, and if I reload, so for the time being in case of images simply we have make hidden. Now let's go and inspect. Go to console tab. Now without passing any value, if I click on add employee, and now we can see the validation is working. Employee name is required, email is required, invalid gender, and designation is required successfully. This is all about like how to set up a step by step this form from this HTML file, and also how to implement the form validation. Let's go back to editor. Now, after this, after doing all these basic things, now let's create some state variable. So to create a state variable, let's go at the top of this function. After this home, I'll create our first state variable that is called employees. So this state variable basically holds all about all employees data. So employees is state manager. Let's say set employees. and we have to use state, and automatically whenever if we use state, it will be imported from this React. Now inside use effect, it is a type of employee interface, so it will be employee interface, and the initial value of this state variable will be an empty array. Now then after, I need one more state variable, and this state variable will holds all about the preview image of uploaded profile photo of any specific employee. What basically I mean, so for example, if I upload a profile image of any employee, so in that case we have to read the value of that file, and we have to convert into the preview image of that file. So to hold that value, let's create a state variable. So it will be const preview image, and here let's say set preview image equals to use state, and it is type, let's say a file type, maybe string type, maybe, or undefined. So the initial value I will put it as undefined. Now save these changes. Let's copy this preview image, and then after I have used image tag here. So in that case, what I will do, let's remove first this comment from here. And one more thing, either we can use this image tag of HTML. Also, we have the option of image component inside this Next.js application. So instead of using this image tag, let's use the image component. So it will be something like import an image from Next image. So once we import, let's go, and here we have the image tag. So in place of this, what we can do, expression. So if preview image will contain any value, so in that case, what I will do, inside parenthesis, first I will go and cut this image tag. Now to use the image component, it's very simple. It's just like the image tag, only instead of img, it will be image component. And inside image component, we'll have the same attributes called src, alt, class name, and width. Inside src, let's put, instead of this empty value, let's put this value. Now whenever if we get the value inside preview image, automatically this value will be rendered inside image component. Now after this preview image, what we can do, if I go at the top, so here we have one more state variable, so I will copy this employees. Let's copy, scroll down to a tabular format, and here, as we know that we have to handle conditionally, like here no rows found, and here we have the values. So what we can do, just I will go into this t body. Let's use an expression, so employees dot length greater than 0. So in that case, this first parenthesis will execute, otherwise this second parenthesis will execute. So inside the second parenthesis, what I will do, let's cut this tr having no rows found, and I will just put inside the second parenthesis. Now then after, here we have the first parenthesis. So what I will do, I'll cut this tr like what we have the value, and then after I will go to this first parenthesis and just put it here. Now if I save these changes, let's go back to browser, and now we can see okay. And if I reload, and then now we can see inside tabular format right now no rows found, and it's because inside our state variable called employees there's no data. Now one more thing, if I go into this form, click on choose file. Let's select, for example, this image. So as we can see, file has been selected, but there is no preview. So how to enable the preview of this image file right here? Let's go back to editor. Now to enable the preview, let's go inside this input type file. Here is the button, and inside this, I will add on change event, and inside this on change event, inside this expression, I will put, let's say, first set value. Remember this set value we have imported, remember, from this use form. Here we have the set value. Let's scroll down. So inside the set value, it will be called profile image, and let's take the key that what we have taken. So here we have the profile image, so I will copy this key. Let's go inside set value. Now this is profile image, and here let's go inside parenthesis. I will pass event object to read the value of uploaded file. So it will be event dot target dot files, and I will read the first index value. And then after here, I'll put one more thing, that is the state variable, that is called set preview image. And by the help of that, simply url dot create object URL, and inside here I will pass event dot target dot files and the index value. So automatically what will happen, if we choose any file first, this value will be set, like what file we selected, this file will be set inside its profile image property, and additionally it also create the preview and set inside our image preview the state variable. Save these changes. Let's go back to browser. If I go, let's reload, click on this choose file. I will select, for example, this image, click on this, and here we have some error, that is blob is missing height property. So what we can do inside this image component, what basically we have used, here we have only the width attribute. So let's go here inside this preview image, and also let's pass something like this. It will be, let's say, 100, and also let's add height attribute and it will be 100. If I save these changes, let's go here, and if I reload, let's choose a file, for example this one. And now we can see according to the selected file, according to the selected employee image, now here we have the profile image preview. If I will go here, let's choose this one, and now we can see our file preview. Now this is the overall concept, that how to do the onChange event on input type file, and on the basis of that how to set the preview image. And now next we have to start over the functions of CRUD operation, like create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation. And all these things we can do using Redis database. So inside our project folder, remember we have created a file inside lib folder which is redis.ts. So by the help of this file, simply we have to export a Redis database instance. So what we can do, just go inside lib folder, let's open redis.ts, and inside this I have to import, so import Redis. And remember, this is the package what basically we have installed called Redis. And then after, let's say const Redis, the database instance new equals to Redis. After getting this Redis instance, simply we have to export from this file. So it will be export default, and it will be Redis. Now all things has been done. So by using this Redis database object, we can do and execute all those commands which performs the create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation. And one more thing, before working over the commands and the methods of Redis, something we have to know before that, that is how to create a data, how to remove a data, how to display data using the commands of Redis database. So for that, what I will do, I'll give you a small session that how to use Redis database. So let's go back to project terminal, and here I have opened a new tab. So first I'll go into Redis CLI. So to go into Redis CLI, we have to type a command called Redis-CLI. And one more thing, before doing all these things, you must need Redis must be installed into your local system. So once we type in this command, hit enter, and now I can see that inside my local system, Redis CLI is now connected with this localhost 6379 is the port. Now here, what basically I want to do some operations. For example, by using Redis CLI, I will create a table called devices, and inside this table called devices, I will store some values. Now, if you are wondering that how to save our values inside this database, so let me tell you that we have to store all the values inside this devices table in the format of key value pairs. It means if suppose I want to create our first device inside this devices table, so first we have to create a key, then its value. So here, let's say id equals to 1, and then after I'll create, let's say, a value called device1, which is the name of this device, and also the cost, let's say 400, and this is the cost of this device. If I talk about the field, so this is id, and here its name, and here we have the cost. So let's say that I want to create a devices table inside Redis, and then after I want to store this value. And if suppose I want to get this value, how to get that? If suppose I want to remove this value from these devices, how to remove that? Now, for all these operations, basically we have to follow some set of commands of Redis. By the help of that, we can easily do the create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation. So, for example, let's say that I want to create this data into this devices table. And one more thing, in terms of Redis, this is not a table, this is a key, because as we know that inside Redis database, we have to store the value in terms of key and value pairs. So here, let's say that I want to create this data. So the syntax will be hset, which is the command, and then after we have to pass the key name space. Then we have to pass the field and then value. So here this is going to be like hset, then devices, the key name. I want this value at first field. So let's say that one. And then after, this is all about the value like ID, name and cost. So this will be object. So I need to convert first this object into string format. So how can we do? So this is an object. Here we have the ID, which is one. Then after, here we have the name called device1, device1, and after cost, which will be 400. So what I will do, each value I will convert first into a string format. So this will be devices one, then here this name, then ID and ID. So instead of this numeric, let's put one here, and this cost, let's say 400. Now all is okay. Now this time we can't insert this value directly. So instead, I also need to convert this complete object into a string format. So what we can do, just cut double quotes and put this value. I can see that inside this double quotes here we have used double quotes. So what basically I need to skip these double quotes from this parent double quotes. So how to do, simply inside this like internal double quotes, just add backward slash before each of this double quote, backward slash. So after putting this backward slash, now this double quotes is now escaped. I mean to say that if suppose I want to go Means I want to go and skip this double quotes, just put this backward symbol. Now then after, just go for this name value, put backward slash, put backward slash, put backward slash here, cost, and backward slash. Now, all thing has been done. So this is the value. So if we want to perform the create operation, we have to execute this command to go with the Redis. Now then after, if suppose I want to read the value of this first ID, so to read operation, this is for, let's say, for read operation. So in this case, it will be hget, and then we have to pass the key, and then the field. So here it will be something like this, like hget. I want to read the value from this devices and the field we want for this first index. So just put one here. Now it will return the complete value what basically we have stored here. If suppose I want to get all the values of entire table, so in that case we have to use hget all and then simply devices. And if suppose I want to remove any value from table, so in that case I have to use, for delete operation, I have to use htell, then about the key name called devices and the field. For example, I want to remove this value, so just pass one here. Now after getting all these ideas, let's see in action about all these things inside Redis CLI. So let's go inside project terminal inside this Redis CLI. So let's add set. Now we can see that once we type any command, it is auto completing like hset, and after here we have to pass key, field and value. So here let's say that devices, I want to create at first field and the value. If I go back to editor, let's copy this. I just copied, go back to CLI, and let's put here, so we can see that at set devices 1 and this is the value. So after putting it, let's hit enter, and now we can see integer 1, which means that now we have the first value inside at the first index of this devices. Now let's create one more. So inside this devices, I will store this value at index 2, id will be 2, inside this devices 2, and let's say cost will be 1000. Hit enter. Now you can see one more row inside this devices. Now let's say that I want to get all those data what basically we have inside this devices key. So to get all data, remember we have h get all. Then we have to pass the key called devices. Hit enter. And now we can see inside this devices key, here we have two rows. At first index, this is the value. At second index, this is the value. Now let's say that I want to get only the value which is at the second index. So here the command is get, and now we can see we have to pass the key. So the key is devices and the field I want at root position. Hit enter, and now we can see at the second position this is the value. Now let's say that I want to remove a value from this array, like from this key. So let's say that I want to remove this first value at the very first index. So the command will be hdel, and then after we have to pass the key called devices and the field. Let's pass 1 here. If I hit enter, and now we can see integer 1, which means that 1 to removed from that key. So if I type hget all devices, hit enter, and now we can see we have only a single value which is at the second index, and that is this is the value. And one more thing, let's say that I want to perform the update operation. For example, for the second id, how to update the name value. It's very simple. Again, we have to use the same method called set. Then after we have to pass the key called devices, second index, and the value. So if I copy this complete value, copied, paste here. So for example, I want to update the name of the second index. Let's go at this devices, and if I put, let's say, updated, hit enter, and now we can see index 0. It means that we didn't insert any new row. Instead, we have updated our existing row. Now if I type, let's get all devices, now this time I can see that here the updated value. So successfully, now here we have the idea that how to perform create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation. Now after getting all this idea, now let's create some API endpoint into this project so that we can use those API endpoints to do all types of operation like create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation. So first thing first, I will start with the get operation. It means to get all those employees what we'll save from employee management form. So what we can do, just I will go into this app folder, API folder, employees folder, and I will open route.ts. Now this file route.ts is coming from API and employees folder. Now then after, I will import something. So import, let's say next response, and it will come from next server. And one more thing also we have to import, that is Redis from lib Redis. Remember, this is the Redis instance what basically we have created. So by using this Redis instance, which is very important, we can call all those methods. By the help of that, we can perform all db operations. So here, now first I'll create our first route, which basically we hit using get request type to get all about all those values from that key. So it will be something called export function, and this method will be hit using get request type, and inside that we have to get all employees, let's say Redis, the database instance, hget all, hget all. Remember, in our Redis CLI, this was command, but here this is a method. So by using hget all, then after into this parenthesis inside this double quotes, we have to pass the key. So for example, let's say that we'll have the key called employees underscore db. Now behind the scene, the command will be something like this. Let's copy this one. So the command will be called hget all and the key called employees db. Now here, if suppose it returns an empty object, we have no data, so let's return an empty object. Now then after, let's say return next response dot json, and inside this let's object dot values, and inside this I will pass all employees. Let's use map method. I'll iterate over each single employee. each single employee and simply JSON dot parse, because as we know that it will return into string format. If I go here, it will return the value in string format. So also we have to parse. So JSON dot parse, and inside it I will pass each single employee object. So let's copy and pass it here. Now save these changes and OK it is now something like this. So as we are using a wait keyword, so this function will be anything in nature. Now I think it is not here before this function keyword, and it is here. Now if I save all these changes, let's go back to page.tsx, and inside page.tsx here I will make use of use effect. So use effect, so once we use automatically it will be imported from this React. As we can see, use effect. Now then after I will call our get request function, what basically we have created on page load. So simply this is an API. So for HTTP request or for the API call, remember we have installed Axios package. So what we can do, just go first create a function called const fetch all employees, and inside this I will make use of Axios package. So first thing first, let's import here. So import, it's Axios from Axios package. Now then after, if I go to our fetch employees function, and here let's say const data equals to, it will be await Axios. I have to use get request method, and inside this remember for this route.ts API route will be called API means forward slash API forward slash employees, and we have to hit that API using get request method. Well, let's go here. So inside Axios.get it will be forward slash API forward slash employees. Automatically this will call the route.ts this get function. Now here I'm using await, so it will be async in nature. All done. Now finally, after getting all those employees from this get response, what we have to do, here we have a state variable called set employees. So just copy, go here and put data. Now save these changes. Let's copy this function, go inside use effect and just put here. So it simply means that on page load, this function will be called, and this function is calling an API, and this API is returning all those data what we'll have inside our employees DB. Now save all these changes. Let's go back to browser, and if I reload, and now we can see right now we don't have any key called employees DB into Redis, so that's why we don't have any data. Now let's work over the post request method, so that whenever if I fill any data and upload an image, so in that case these data will be saved by using set method. Let's go back to editor. Let's go inside page.tsx, and here if I go to this on submit handler, this on submit, so if I save these changes again and if I go, let's go and inspect, and into this console tab, let's clear, let's pass some data. So I am passing something dummy value, and here let's select designation, let's say PHP, and choose a file. For example, this is an employee. Now here we have all this information. If I click on add employee, and now we can see according to console.log on form submit, here we have the data as name, email, designation, gender, and profile image. So what we can do, instead of working over set method to upload this data into Redis, first thing first, also we have to work over that how to upload this profile image into a project folder. Because as we know that also we have to keep track of the profile image, what basically an employee has uploaded. So what we can do, just go here and inside this console.log, and now inside this, let's say if data dot profile image, if it is an instance of file, it means we have uploaded any file. So in that case, what it will do, first let's say that let image path is equals to data dot profile image. So if it is an instance, its image path is equals to, I will call a function, and that function will upload this profile image to our project folder. So what we'll do here, let's say that I will call a function upload profile image, and into this function I will simply pass data dot profile image. Now then after, let's copy this function name. I'll go here and this is upload profile image and it will be const function name, and inside this function it is accepting profile image which is a type of file, and here let's say const form data, not small f, it is capital F. Now here let's say form data is equals to new form data. We are creating an instance of form data, and then let's say form data dot append, and here let's say profile underscore image. In this I'll simply bind this profile image. So here we have created an instance of form data. This is an instance and I am binding a key called profile image. Into this key simply we have passed the file what basically we have uploaded from employee management form, and then after let's call an API. So const data is equals to await, and here I'll call Axios by using post request method. Let's call an API that is forward slash API forward slash upload. Remember, inside our API folder, also we have a folder called uploads. And inside this uploads folder, here we have a file called route.ts. So inside this file, I'll write a post request function, and by the help of that, we'll upload profile image into the working directory of this project. So it will be forward slash API forward slash uploads, and then after let's pass value and it will be form data. Now successfully, and for the time being, let's return data.ul. Now let's copy or go inside the route.ts of uploads folder, and here first I will import, let's say import next response from next server. And then after, there's no need of Redis instance because I have to upload like this image, the uploaded profile photo into the working directory of this project folder. So what I will do, simply let's export, but two more packages we want here, that is import file system. So fs from fs, then after import path from path, and here let's export function. It will be post request function, and inside this function let's pass request. It's an instance, it is type of request, and then after into here let's use try catch block in case of any exception, let's say error, and in case of any error simply return next response dot json, and inside this json let's pass here that is status equals to false, and message, let's say fail to upload profile image. Now let's go inside this try block, and now inside this try block let's say const form data equals to await, let's say request dot form data. So here by means of this line of code simply we're reading all those data what we have passed to our post request function. Now then after, here let's say const file equals to form data dot get. Here we have the form data, so form data dot get, and I will get the file what basically we have uploaded, and the key we have called profile underscore image to just copy and put it here. Now this is as a file instance. Now then after, let's say if file, if suppose we don't have any file, so in that case what I will do, in this case let's say return next response dot json, and here let's say status equals to false, and message equals to, let's say, profile photo not found. Now save these changes. Now if suppose we have the file, so first things first, we have to create a folder into public folder. So inside this project folder, if you have remember, so also we have a folder called public. So what basically I will do, I'll create a uploads folder here, or let's say users folder, and inside that folder I will upload the profile photo what basically the users will upload from this the form. Let's go here. Now then after, I have to first check that if directory exists. So let's say const upload directory. Upload directory is equals to path what basically we have imported dot join, and inside here let's say process dot current working directory is a function. Now I have to check that if this folder exists called public forward slash uploads. Now here let's if fs dot exist sync, and inside this I will check that upload directory. If it is not exist, so in that case let's create that folder. So create uploads folder. Now create upload folder, I will use fs.mkdir sync, and into this simply we have to pass upload directory. Now by the help of this code, what basically we are doing, first we are checking this path by using this exist sync. If it not exist, exclamation, if it not exist, so in that case simply we are creating this uploads folder into public folder. Now then after, let's upload our file. So const file path equals to path.join, not JSON, path.join, and here upload directory. And inside this upload directory, I will upload the file.name. So this is the file what basically we have uploaded, and we have to get the name, and that file will be uploaded into this upload directory. So this is only to get the file path name. Now then after here, let's say const stream equals to fs dot create write stream, and into this simply pass file path, and then after let's say stream dot write, and into this let's say buffer dot from, and into here let's say await. I'll use file dot array buffer. Now save these changes. So I'm using await, so this function must be async, so export async. Now after this, let's go here. It's simply return, then next response dot JSON, and inside here, let's say status is equals to true, and URL is equals to backtick symbol, and inside here, let's pass uploads folder, and inside this uploads folder, simply we have to pass the file name, and it will be file dot name. And one more thing, and also let's add one more key called message equals to let's say profile image URL. And one more thing, if suppose the first employee has uploaded, for example, abc.png, and the second employee again uploaded a file called abc.png, so in that case, old file will be replaced with the new file. So to solve that issue so that each employee will have the profile photo into uploads folder, what we can do, instead of putting file name, we can generate a unique timestamp value. So what we can do here, if I go, so instead of file name, let's go, let's say const file extension is equals to file dot name dot split. I'll split the name dot and get the last value. So this line of code simply means that, for example, if I uploaded let's say abc.png, so by the help of this code we are getting this extension value. So it is png. Now then after, let's say const file name is equals to backtick symbol, and here let's say date dot now method, and here I will concatenate with this file extension. Now this line of code will generate a unique value to each file name. So let's copy this file name, and after copy, just go replace this one and this one. Now all things okay for this post function to upload our profile photo into the working directory, and additionally it will create a folder into this public folder, and the folder name will be called uploads. Now let's go inside this page.tsx. So after getting data, like it will return async in nature. Now this upload profile image, now this time this post request is going to return data, and this data will return some values. If I go here, this data will return status, message, and URL. So this URL is nothing. This is the upload directory path of our profile photo. after getting that value, simply it has returned that URL and it is going into this image path. And this is await. So this function is also will be async. Now after this, let's go and create const employee data equals to, and into this object first I will get all those values what basically we are submitting to this form into this data. So first I will get all those values, then after I'll create the most important, that is field of our first value. So id, this is let's say date dot now dot to string, and then after also we'll have the profile image, so profile underscore image, and in this case I will store simply the image path. And here if suppose we don't have any file, so it will contain an empty value. Now for the time being, let's say console.log, and here we have employee data. Save these changes, and also with experiment also we'll see the upload file into this public folder. Let's go here, and inside this if I reload, click here without any value, validation is working. Now let's create our first user, gender, designation, let's say Java, and inside choose file, for example, I'm uploading this profile photo. Select this one. This is the preview. Now, whenever if I click on this add employee first, it will check that if this is containing any file. So in that case, first it will call this function, and this function by using post request type, it will call this API, and this API by using all these concepts will create a folder called uploads into public folder, and that file hopefully will be uploaded, and in return it will return the URL, and that URL will get inside this profile image. Let's go here on add employee, and I can see that inside here, inside this object, here we have the profile image, name, ID, gender, email, and designation. Let's go inside folder structure, and inside this public folder, now we can see here we have the uploads folder, and inside this uploads folder, now here look at here, the file has been uploaded. If I open, now this is the profile photo, what basically we have uploaded, and also look at here the file name. This is the unique timestamp value what basically we have generated got the file extension. Now after this we have to create an API endpoint. By the help of that we will hit using post request function, and by the help of that we have to use let's set the Redis function to create our data into Redis database. Also we can see that inside this console here we have all data like designation, email, gender, ID, name, profile image, and profile underscore image. Now, if you are wondering that why we have two keys here, so we can see that profile image is containing the raw values, but here this is the exact file path. So while creating our data into Redis database, we'll consider this profile underscore image, then name, ID, gender, email, and designation. Let's go back to editor. Now after this, what we can do, let's say const data equals to await axios, and I will use post request method, and here the API endpoint will be API forward slash employees, and then after I will pass employee data. It will return data. Then after let's say if data dot status, if I put here something like this, let's say instead of something, let's say response, and here let's say response dot data dot status, and in response will return either true or false. So if suppose it returns the true value, so in that case toaster. So once we use toast automatically it will import. Remember also we have installed a package called toast. Now this will use to display the browser notification. So here, so toast dot success, and inside this also will return a message from API. So it will be response dot data dot message. Otherwise, in case of else block, let's copy the same code, put here, but instead of using success, this will be error. Now then after we have to create the API. So in this case, we have to go inside API employees and we have to open route.ts. And remember, inside the same file, we have the get request function. Now, inside this, what we can do, let's export function. This time we'll hit using post request function. Now here, inside this post, let's accept the parameter what basically will send. And inside this request, we have to send, if I go, let's close this one, goes cloud.txt, close this reddit.ts. So inside this post function, we are sending this employee data. Now let's go here, request. Now then after, let's first destructure. So as we know that inside this request, we are getting all these data like name, email, and all those stuff. So we have to destructure. So if I want to create any employee, I want the values like ID, name, email, gender, then designation, and then profile underscore image. So these are the only keys what basically I want from request object. Now then after equals to, let's say request dot JSON. Let's use a wait keyword, and also this function will be async. Now then after, let's say const, and one more thing, let's wrap all these code inside our try catch block in case of any error. Let's go inside catch block error. So here, let's say return. Let's put that code here. Now return next response dot JSON. And inside this, let's say status equals to false. Let's say message equals to failed to create employee. And this will be from error block. Now save these changes. Let's go inside this try block. So const, here we have all these data. So also we want to put the validation of unique email address. What I mean, for example, I have created an employee using the email called user1 at gmail.com. Now the same email I don't want to use for second employee. I want that email address should be unique throughout key of employee DB. So in that case, let's first get all those data. So const, let's say all employees equals to await. I will use hgetAll. Remember hgetAll, and inside this we have to pass the key. So this is the key called, not this one, hgetAll. And actually this function we have to call using the Redis instance. I forgot to add get all, and inside here this is the key. Now if all employees will contain the value or the email what basically we are trying to insert, so in that case the response will be email address already taken or email address already exists. So to check that, so this is to check duplicate email. So it will be, let's say const is employee exists. So in that case, it's object dot values, because as we know that it will return the value and all those values will be in string format. So object dot values, and in this case, let's say all employees. Then after, I'm going to use some method, because if suppose any specific employee has that same email value, so inside this sum method, I will pass and iterate over each single employee. And then after, let's say json.parse, and here let's say as single employee as a string dot email equals to what email we are passing into this request. Now simply we have the condition, so it is just checking that all those employees what we are getting from this key, if all those employees have, like any employee have this email what we are passing into this request, so in that case it will return the true value. So here let's say if is email exist, so in that case like email already exists, so it will be return next response dot json, and inside here let's say status equals to false, message equals to, let's say email already exist. Now save these changes. Let's go here, either we can create else block or simply no need of else block because directly without having any error, it will not go inside this if block, it will go here. Now then after let's await, I'll use Redis dot set method. Remember set method. Now by using set method, first we have to pass the key. So this is the key called employees DB. Let's copy, put here. Then we have to pass, remember the field. If I go here into this example, after I set this is the key, then we have to pass the field. So here we have the field as ID. So I will copy this ID, then I will go here and into this set, let's ID, then after JSON, because we are passing the JSON object, so we have to convert into a string. So JSON dot stringify, and into that let's pass ID, name, email, gender, then after designation and profile underscore image. So after passing all these data, actually we are trying to create like devices like employees DB. This will be our first value like ID will value, and inside this value, what we are seeing here, this is nothing. This is the complete JSON object, and by using stringify, we are converting into a string format. Now once it will be done, then finally let's return next response dot json, and inside here let's say status equals to true, message let's say employee added successfully. Now save these changes. Let's go back to browser. I think everything has been done. If I go into page.tsx, so after getting a status, which means that if data has been saved, the status will be true. So this is true. After getting true, response.data dot message, and the message will be employee added successfully. After that, here we'll have the toaster message into success response. Save all these changes. Let's go here, and if I reload, let's create some data. So for example, let's say user1 email will be user1 at gmail.com, gender will be male, designation, let's say PHP, choose file, let's go click on any of the photo. For example, this one, all these data, if I click on add employee, and now we can see employee added successfully. Now if I go to verify, and also let's go to our database like Redis CLI, and here if I type hget all, and if I pass the key called employees underscore db, hit enter, and now we can see that inside this hget all employees db key, now here we have the first value at this ID what basically we have inserted. And one more cool thing about this Redis CLI, also we can do the monitor process. Let me show you here. So first, I will exit from this Redis CLI. Now, instead of going into Redis CLI, if I want to monitor that what basically the query are executing with Redis, so simply type Redis -cli, and monitor is the command. Hit enter. Now it is listening that basically when we hit this Redis, so whenever what the commands we execute, automatically those commands will be logged into this console. Let's go here. So if I reload, remember if I reload this page, automatically it will call a function inside this use effect. Inside use effect, so it will call this API, and this API will call this get request, and this will call get all these data. So if I go, let's reload. If I reload behind the scene, a query has been executed and called to our Redis. If I go to terminal, and now we can see that behind the scene on page load, it has called a query called hget all and employees underscore db. Now one more cool thing, if I go to insert now new data into this form, I'm using fake filler to like import some fake data, choose a file. For example, this one. So after passing all these data, now here, right now we have only a single query. What basically we have run inside this Redis CLI. If I go click on add employee, data has been inserted, and if I go to our CLI, and now we can see that behind the scene, while using this monitor command, now this command we have executed called set. This is the key called employees DB. This is the ID where we are storing the value, and this is the complete values format. Now successfully After getting all these things, if I go to network tab, let's reload one more time. So after running the query called hget all employees underscore db, here we have in response all these data. So here we have the first object which contains the first user information. Then after, here we have the second object which contains the second user information. So we have to bind all these dynamic data what basically we have created from this form to this tabular format. Now let's go back to editor, go inside page.tsx, and instead here if I go, and one more thing, after saving data, let's copy this fetch employees, and after save inside this success response, let's call that function again so that whenever if I save any data, automatically this function again gets called and all the employees should be listed inside our tabular format. After getting data, let's go inside this tb, like inside this table, and inside here, like inside this first parenthesis, I'll use, let's say, employees dot map, and I will iterate over each single employee. So single employee, and like before using that, if I go outside of this parenthesis, let's say employees dot map, and here let's say single employee, then I will use this parenthesis. Let's cut this parenthesis complete from here and just put inside it. Now here, what I will do, just copy this single employee, and inside a single employee, if I see the response, here we get the values like ID, name, email, gender, designation, and profile image. So what we can do, just copy this single employee, and here let's first add the key prop single employee dot id. Now then after into this td, if we get the profile photo, so what we can do, let's go first keep it as it is. Then after into this expression single employee dot profile image, if I go to check the key call profile underscore image, let's copy. So if we have the value, so in that case this image tag will be called, let's copy, cut here, and just put it here. Otherwise, what we can do, just put question mark. Otherwise, in case I will call, let's say, 2 hyphen, it means no image available. So single employee dot profile image. Now then after, if I go here and also let's copy this single employee profile image and put inside this src attribute. And also I need a height attribute, so let's add height and it will be, let's say, 50 pixel. But then after, let's remove this comment line. Now here we need the name value, so let's copy, go here in place of this static name, let's say single employee dot name. For this email, so it will be single employee dot email. For designation, let's put single employee dot designation. You don't have any gender, so don't worry at all. If you want the gender, also you can add here. For the time being, we have inside this tr called profile, name, email, designation, and accents. If I want to add the gender, simply it will be something called th gender, and after email, it will be td. And also one more thing, all these values will be wrapped inside this expression. Let's cut this code and put inside this expression, and inside this td, which is for gender, this will be single employee dot gender. Now save these changes. So if I go to browser and on page reload, now we can see that here we have the profile information. Designation is not coming, and I think let's wrap inside our curly braces, put here, save these changes, and now we can see profile photo, name, email, gender, designation, and here we have the action buttons. Now let's fill fake filler the existing informations. Click on female. This time I'm not going to upload any profile photo. Click on add employee. Employee has been created, and this time we are getting the no image icon. Now after this insert operation and list operation, now we have to work over the edit operation and delete operation. So if suppose any user clicks on edit button on any specific row, so automatically all these existing data, for example, for this first row will be rendered to this form, as well as this button, the label will be updated from add employee to update employee. So here inside this name field, we'll have the existing value, existing email, existing gender, designation, and the preview of the profile image. So how to handle? Let's go back to editor, and then I will go into this page.tsx of this home component, and inside this edit button, let's add on click event, and then here I will call a function, let's say handle edit data, or we may say handle employee edit, and inside this function I will pass the complete single employee object what we are getting inside this map function. So let's copy and pass it here. Now then after, let's copy this function name. Then I will go here. So handle, or we may say render existing information of an employee. So in this case, const the function name, and inside this function, as we know that we are passing some data. So those data which is of type employee. And inside this function, what basically we have to do, we have to use the concept of set value. Remember, set value is the function what basically we get from this use form. So here we have the set value. Let's copy, and if I go to this handle employee edit, let's call here, and from this employee data, let's copy. So first I want to render the name value inside this form. So if I go to the field, so this is name, so it will be name, and the value it will be employee dot name. So if I save these changes, let's go back to browser, and if I reload, click on edit button, and now we can see the existing name value of that employee. Now, if I click on the second user, click on edit button, and here we have the name value. Now into same pattern, we have to repeat for this email, gender, designation, and preview. Let's go here. Now then after set value, and inside this the key we have called email, it will be employee dot email. Then after set value, we have, let's say, gender, employee, and gender. Then designation, so set value, it will be designation employee dot designation. And finally, we want the preview image of profile image. And one more thing, set value, it will be profile image. If I go, let's scroll down to input by file. So here we have, so profile image. So I will copy this key. Let's go here inside this function. So profile image, and it will be employee dot profile image. Now then after, also I want the preview image. So for that, let's copy this set preview image, the state manager, and then after I will call here, and inside this I will pass employee dot profile image. If I go to check inside our tabular format, so this is like single employee dot profile underscore image. So I'll just copy and put it here. So if I save these changes, let's go back to browser. If I reload, let's click on this second user, click on edit button, and now we can see the name, email, here we have the gender, designation, and profile image. If I click on this first user, click on edit button, and now we have all these existing data. Now then after, we have to work over the API concept so that whenever if I click on this button, it will update the existing information. And one more thing, whenever if I click on this edit button, also we have to update the label from add employee to update employee. Let's go back to editor. Now let's scroll at the top of this file, and here inside along with this state variable, let's create one more state variable that is called const is edit, and here let's say set is edit equals to use state, and initially it will contain the null value, and inside this set is edit basically will set an employee type value, or initially it will be of null type. So what we can do, just copy this set as edit, And then after I will go to this function called handle employee edit, and inside this function simply let's set here, and this will be the complete employee object. Now what will happen? So whenever if I click on edit button along with all these values, also this state variable what basically we have taken, now this state variable will contain some values. Now let's copy this is edit. Now according to the condition of a state variable, let's go at this button, and I will check that if isEdit has a value. So in that case, what we can do, let's say update employee, or here let's write employee. So if it contains any value, so in that case the label will be called update employee, or it will be called add employee. Now, if I save all these changes, let's go back to browser, and here, now initially the button label is add employee. So whenever if I click on this edit button of this user, click on edit, and now you can see existing information, and also the label of this button now updated from add employee to update employee. Now what will happen? So whenever if I click on this button, this will call the same function. Remember the function already we have created called on form submit. Now inside this function also we have to handle that is like if it is an add operation or edit operation. So how to differentiate? So it's very simple. If I go here, now after this let's first detect that operation type. So it will be, let's say, if, and if we have any value inside is edit, so it means that it is a type of edit operation. Otherwise inside this else block we'll have add operation. So what we can do, let's cut all this existing code from here. So I just cut all this code. This was for add operation. So I will go into this else block. Now let's go inside this if block. It means if it is an edit operation. So in that case, first I will copy this employee data, put here. Now inside here we have the existing data. Now this time instead of generating a new ID, we want the existing ID, because this time I want to perform update operation. So in case of update operation, remember in case of update operation this will be again at set the key called devices, and here we have the same ID. Only the difference is that here we have the updated values. So what we can do, instead of this date now to a string, I'll use isEdit, and it will be isEdit.id. Now save these changes. Now then after I'll go and call our API, and this time I'll use put request type to perform the update operation. So here let's say await x yours, I'll use put method, and inside this put method I will pass API URL. So it will be API forward slash employees forward slash, and here I need to pass employee ID. So employee ID we are getting inside this isEdit.id. So let's copy, and instead of using double quotes, I'll use backtick symbol forward slash API forward slash employees forward slash, and here dollar curly pairs, and it will be isEdit.id. And along with also we have to pass the employee data. So let's copy inside second argument, just paste here. Now then after, if suppose we get a positive response, so const data equals to, now in this case what we can do, and here I think some error we have, not data, this will be called response after getting API response. So if response dot status, like response dot data dot status, if it is true, so in that case what we'll do, let's say post dot success, and inside this let's say response dot data dot message. Now, after this, let's create an else block here, and this time it will be toast dot error. And inside this function, I will use response.data.message. Now save these changes. Now this is for our edit operation. Now next we have to work over the API, and by the help of that API we'll update the existing data. Now to work over the API, if I go, remember the URL will be API forward slash employees forward slash ID. Now we have to go inside this API employees, and after employees this is an ID, so we have to go inside this ID folder, and we have to open route.ts. In this, first I will import, let's say, next response. it will be from Next server. Then let's import Redis, it will be from lib redis, and then after let's say async or simply export function, I will use put request because we will perform update operation. Now inside this put request, like inside this put function, what basically first thing first we have to go and like take all the request parameters. So this will be all request parameters, and additionally also we are passing here employee ID. So this is a type of parameter. So it will be inside this second value, simply pass params like parameter, and then after inside these params, it will be like params, and what the params we are getting, this is an id. So inside this it will be id, and it is type of string. So simply inside this put function, basically we are getting all about employee data, and also additionally we are passing the employee id. So by the help of this employee id, we have to update the existing information. So that id we can get from this params dot id. Now let's go here and I'll create this try catch block. So try and catch block. Now, in case of any errors, simply let's go here. Simply I'll go, let's say console.log, and it will be error. Now let's go inside this try block. So inside this try block, I will first destructure what the data we get inside this request. So it will be const. Now inside this, let's say const, and it will be equals to await request dot json. Now here, and we are using await, so this function will be async in nature. Now then after, from this request.json, I will destructure the name, or let's say first id, name, email, gender, designation, and also we have the profile underscore image. If I go to this employees folder and this route.ts, so inside here also we have destructure all these things from this request.json. So in the same way, also we have to destructure inside this put request. After this, what to do? Let's say await. We have to use Redis instance. Then we have to call set function, and inside this we have to pass the first the table key. So we'll have called employees underscore db. Now inside here, then after we have to pass all those values, but before that, also we have to pass ID like the field. So in this case, it will be params dot id, and inside this third argument we have to pass the value, and the value will be in string format. So this will be json dot stringify, and inside this we have to pass, let's pass id, then name, email, gender, designation, and profile image. Now, successfully, by using the concept of this set function, we are calling the same table key called employees.db, and by the help of this ID, what basically we are passing, we are updating the existing information. Now, once we do all these things, let's say return, it will be next response dot json, and inside here, let's say status will be true, and message equals to, let's say, employees data updated successfully. Now save these changes. Now to test, let's go back to browser, and here if I reload, and for example I want to update the gender of this first employee, click on edit button, and here I'll choose mail, and also let's update that is this email with this updated keyword. So after passing all these values, if I click on this update employee, click on this button, and now we can see employee data updated successfully. But one more thing, after update operation, after successful completion, also I want that this table should reload. So what we can do, just go back to editor, and inside here, inside this page.tsx, after employee update, inside this if block, let's call the same function, and the function is, remember, fetch all employees. So I'll just copy, go inside this success block and paste it here. Now here, for the time being, this employee has been updated. So if I reload, and now we can see into this list, the email has been updated and the gender is also updated. But the issue is that now the profile image is missing. So what is happening? So whenever, if I updating the existing informations, for example, this user, second user. So I'm getting the icon, but here without passing any value, click on update employee. So it is going to save the empty value in place of profile image of that key. So what to do? So we have to retain, for example, if we are not uploading any profile image for any employee, so in that case, we have to go and retain the existing values. And in case if we have uploaded the new profile photo, so in that case, new profile photo will be uploaded. Now to fix this issue, what we can do, just go back to editor and here before updating or calling this API, what we can do, just copy this employee data and here let's say console.log employee data and simply return from here. If I save these changes, let's go back to browser. If I reload, now for example, I want to update this second user, click on edit. Now here we have the existing information. Go into this console tab. If I click on this update employee, and now we can see inside here we are getting an object, and inside this object, look at here, profile image is empty and profile image is undefined. But inside our code, inside our API endpoint, if I go here, we are looking for this profile underscore image, and right now, according to this object property, profile image has an empty value. So now to fix this issue, what we can do, just go back to editor, go inside page.tsx, and then after leave as it is. If I scroll down, if I go to this function called handle employee edit, and inside here, I'll copy this key called profile image. What basically property we have used for this that preview image. So I'll just copy, go inside this profile image key and put it here. Now if I save these changes, let's go back to browser, and if I reload, click on this edit button of this user, click on update employee. Now this time if I go into this object, and now we are able to see the value of profile image and profile underscore image. Now let's go here, click on this first employee. Now here we have the existing values. Let's add something called updated, and this time I will upload, and before that let's go first. Let's go and comment this line of code called console.log. Save these changes. Let's go back to browser, reload one more time. Click on this first user. Just go here. And if I go, click on choose profile. Click on this photo. Now after upload, click on update employee. And now we can see employee data updated successfully. And here we have the updated name and the profile image. So finally, now here we have one more concept, and that is of edit operation. Now finally, we have to work over the delete operation of this action button. So what basically I need, so whenever if any user click on this delete button, first we have to open a confirmation, and from that confirmation, first I will take the user confirmation. If the user will allow to delete, then automatically we have to call an API using delete request type, and we have to delete this user from this list as well as from our database. So what we can do, just go and one more thing, like if I go back to and open package.json, remember also we have installed Sweet Alert 2. So by using Sweet Alert 2, by using SWAL, also we can open a confirmation model. So for that, if I go back to browser and let's open Sweet Alert 2. If I go into this sweetalert2.github.io, let's open. Now inside this documentation of Sweet Alert, if I scroll down, we can see that there are lots of examples of it. So from these examples, I want this one. So first I will click on this try me. So on click event of button on delete, I want to open this model. So what to do? Simply let's copy this code, and before copy, let's go into editor, go inside page.tsx, and inside here, first we have to import, let's import SWAL from Sweet Alert 2. Now let's go close this block of code, close this one, and if I go, let's close this one, fetch all employee, on form submit, handle employee edit. Now then after, I'll go first your delete button, and into this delete button, let's on click, and inside here, I will pass or I will call that function called handle employee delete, and into this function, I will pass single employee dot id. Now let's copy this function name, go at the top, and here let's say handle employee delete. Now let's say const function name, and into this function I am passing the employee ID, which is a type of string. Let's say, so inside this we have to call an API, and that API also we have to define inside this route.ts. But while calling that API, we have to use delete request type. Now inside this handle employee delete, what we can do, just go back to suite alert documentation, copy all these code and just paste here. Now for the time being, if I save these changes, let's go back to browser. If I reload, click on this delete button of the second employee, for example, and now we can see it is opening the suite alert model, what basically we have seen into this documentation. Now then after, for example, if user clicks on cancel, so no activity will happen, but whenever if user clicks on yes delete it, so after taking the confirmation, we have to call an API, and by the help of that API, we have to delete this employee from this table as well as from Redis database. Let's go back to editor. Now here inside this if block, it means user has pressed like OK or yes delete it button. So let's say await. Then after X years, I will use delete method, and inside this we need to pass the API call. So it will be forward slash API forward slash employees. And then after we have to pass the employee ID. So into this function, I'm getting here the employee ID. So let's copy, go here and just pass it here. Now, in response, let's say const, I'll get data, or even we can call, let's say response, and let's say if response dot data dot status, if it is true, so in that case, let's say toast dot success, and here let's say response dot data dot message. Otherwise, I will go into this else block, let's say toast dot error, and inside here let's say response dot data dot message. And one more thing, I'm using await here, so before this function into this then block, let's use async function. Now for delete operation, to create an API, let's go into this file, that is route.ts from employees and id folder. Now then after, let's close this function. It will be export function. This will be of delete request. Into this function, we have to get ID, it means employee ID. So first request class, and here it will be params. And inside this, let's say params, and inside params, we will pass an ID, which is a type of a string. Into this function, what we can do, let's first use try catch block. And in case of any error, simply go and console.log. So console.log, let's say error. Now let's go into this try block. So after getting ID, we have to call hdel method of Redis. So it will be, let's say await redis.hdel, and into here first thing first we have to pass our key called employees.db, and then after the key name, sorry, the key value. So here it will be params.id. So by using hdel, what basically we are doing, by using hdel here we are passing first the key, and then this value we have passed, that is here params.id. Now I'm using await, so it will be async in nature. Now successfully, what we can do, let's say const, it will be data and error, or even let's simply go and return. So return, let's say next response dot JSON, and inside here let's say status will be true and message equal to, let's say, employee deleted. And one more thing, I want that after deleting any employee from table, the table should reload. Let's go back to page.tsx. So after getting successful response, after getting like a message, let's call the function called fetch all employees. Now if I save these changes, let's go back to browser. If I reload, click on this delete button having no profile image of this employee, click on delete button. cancel, no activity has happened. Click on delete, click on yes, delete it. And now you can see employee deleted. But also I can see that table has exact the same data set if I go to network API calls. So this is all about the list, and here like inside this second response employee deleted, if I go to headers, and now we can see here we have the API, that is API employees, and I think into UL we are not passing the correct ID. Let's go here and okay, this space actually we have added. Just go remove, save these changes. Now if I go, let's reload, click on this delete button, just delete it, and now you can see employee deleted and also the table now reload. So successfully, this is all about the CRUD operation, that how to perform using Next.js and by using Redis database. Let's go delete this employee. Yes, delete it, delete here, yes, delete it. Now, after this, what I will do, let's go back to project terminal, open a new tab, and I will open our Redis CLI monitor so that in the operations of CRUD, like create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation, I want to monitor the background queries. So here, let's type Redis CLI and monitor, hit enter, and now you can see we connected. If I go, let's create some data. So for example, I'm creating this first user, it's a designation php use profile photo. So if I go upload this photo, here we have the employee information, click on add employee. But before that, if I go here, there has been no queries updated, click on add employee, first employee created. If I go, and now we can see by using this function called hset employees db, now this is an ID, and inside this key here we have the complete value. And also after inserting into this key called employees db, remember also we have called the function called fetch all employees. So behind the scene fetch all employees, the function what basically we have created, this function is also calling a function like an API, and that API is calling a query called hgetAll and the key called employees.db. So this is all about like the create operation and list operation. Now let's go create some more employees. So I'm using fake filler, the Chrome extension. And one more thing, after creating any employee, I want that this form will be reset. So how to do? Let's go back to editor, and after create like on this on form submit, go inside this add operation, and inside this add operation simply call the reset function. And this function we have called inside use form hook. If I go at the top, so we can see reset is coming from this use form hook. Let's go, and one more thing, like also we are getting the preview image. So let's copy this set preview image, and along with this reset, let's go and put into this null value. If I save these changes, and I think it is giving an error. So if I go to check this type, so null is okay, and here let's pass null as well. Now if I save these changes, if I scroll down, it's okay. So if I go, let's reload, use this extension to input like the fake values, employees, click on choose file. For example, this one, click on add employee, and now you can see after save, form has been reset, and also there's no preview image. An employee has been created. If I go to our monitor screen, and now we can see again we have the same set of queries. Now let's go to update operations. So for example, I want to update the information of this employee. For example, the email value, click on update employee, employee updated. If I go, and now we can see in this operation, like in this, we can see here we have the same keys like 7754, and here we have the 7754. But in this case, we have updated the email, and we can check it here. Now let's go and delete that user. So for example, I want to delete this user. Click on delete, cancel, no activity. But whenever, if I go, click on this, just delete it. If I go, and now we can see here we have the query called hdel, the key, and the ID. So successfully, this is all about the background queries, what we can monitor of Redis CLI. So finally, friends, now we have completed this very interesting course by means of creating a CRUD-based application using Next.js and Redis database. So inside this step-by-step course, we had seen all types of operation of CRUD like create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation. So I hope if you have followed this complete course to create this CRUD application, now you will have the idea that how to work with the Next.js application with Redis database. So for this very interesting course, please hit the like button to like this very interesting course. Subscribe to this channel. Now let's meet our next amazing course. So for this video session, guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.